What if you could get a letter from the year 1900, one written by someone who literally watched the world go from horseback to steam locomotives? Well, today we're basically doing just that. We've got this incredible personal memoir from a 69-year-old man named James Kemp, written for his grandkids right at the dawn of the 20th century. So let's open this amazing window to the past. He starts it off like this. The new century approaches, and with it, I suspect, changes beyond what even this old carpenter can imagine. With just those words, James Kemp begins his story. And this isn't some dry history book, It's a deeply personal, intimate account from a man looking back at a life of just staggering change, hoping his story might give a little courage to the generations he'd never get to meet. All right, so who was James Abraham Kemp? Well, he was born into a world that is almost unrecognizable to us today. He wasn't a general or a politician or anyone famous. He was a farmer, a carpenter, a husband, and a father. And it's through his eyes that we get this incredible personal view of the 19th century as it unfolded. I mean, just look at this timeline for a second. The amount of history he lived through is just massive. Born in 1831 in a British colony called Upper Canada, he lived to see the actual birth of the Dominion of Canada in 1867. Think about that. This wasn't just a life. It was a front row seat to the building of a nation. But his early life was anything but easy. Seriously, you have to forget everything you know about what childhood is supposed to be like. By the time James was just 8 or 9 years old, he was already expected to do a full day of adult farm labor, right alongside his father and his brothers. His own words just paint such a vivid picture of that life, don't they? It was this relentless cycle of hard physical work from sunrise to sunset, 6 days a week. He puts it this way. Growing up in a big family on a small farm taught him that life wasn't about getting attention. It was just about doing your part, pulling your weight. But a life of nonstop farm work, well, that wasn't his destiny. A huge turning point came when, as a young man, he made the incredibly tough decision to leave everything and everyone he'd ever known behind. And his motivation was pretty clear. See, he was one of 11 children, so there just wasn't enough family land to go around for everybody. And he had his own dreams. So in 1855, he packed up his carpentry tools and just headed west to a part of the country that was growing, basically betting on himself to build a new life from the ground up. So in this new life, he found success, for sure, but he also found something more: love. This next chapter introduces us to his first wife, Mary Jane Sovereign, and it really sets the stage for both the absolute happiest years of his life and its single greatest tragedy. After he married Mary Jane in 1861, James entered what he literally called his golden years. He built up his carpentry business, they established a home, and they started a family. He describes this time with so much warmth, writing, "I felt like the most fortunate man in Canada West." And their family grew, and grew quickly. We're talking 5 children in 10 years. You had Sarah, Seymour, Minnie, Georgia, and then little James. He paints this picture of a house just buzzing with life, and he even mentions his wife singing as she worked. And then he writes this line that just gets you. He wrote, "If I could have frozen time at any moment, it might have been then." But as he says in his letter, time doesn't freeze. And in an instant, his entire world was just shattered. And just like that, the golden years were over. He was suddenly a single father to 5 very young children. The oldest, Sarah, was only 12, and the youngest was just 2 years old. The challenge he was facing, it's almost impossible to even imagine. He's so honest in his letter. He talks about learning to braid hair, he says he was terrible at it, and how to cook simple meals. He had this realization that kids need more than just a provider. They need a comforter, a storyteller. They need a mother. And somehow he had to figure out how to become that person, all while dealing with his own overwhelming sorrow. But his story doesn't end there, in all that grief. This next chapter is really one of incredible resilience. It's about how he and his kids found their way back and started a new beginning. So, 2 years after Mary Jane's death, he met a woman named Melissa Wilson. The way he describes her, she sounds just wonderful, wise, patient. And their marriage, you get the sense, was this very cautious, very fragile bit of hope for his broken family.
And he writes that Melissa never tried to replace Mary Jane. She just started loving his children with this quiet, steady consistency. And then, when their son Alfred was born, James watched his older kids just doting on their new baby brother, and he knew in that moment that they had truly become a family again.
Okay, so after living through so much hardship and so much joy, what did James want to pass on? As he sat there writing in 1900, he looked back on all the incredible changes he'd seen, and he thought about the core truths that he believed were totally timeless. The scale of change he witnessed it's just staggering. I mean, think about it. He was born into a world lit by candles, where travel was by horse or on foot, and the fastest way to talk to someone took weeks. He lived to see steam trains crossing the continent, messages sent instantly by telegraph, and entire cities lit up by electricity. He saw a British colony become the nation of Canada. It's just mind-blowing. So, what did he learn from it all? He basically boils his whole life down into 5 powerful lessons for his grandchildren. First, family is everything. Cherish it. Second, hard work is its own reward. There's real value in it. Third, and this is a big one, adapt or perish. The world changes, you gotta be flexible. Fourth, faith sustains you. It'll get you through the tough stuff. And finally, number 5, love carefully, but when you do, love completely. I mean, these are lessons just as true today as they were in 1900.
And he ends his letter with this really powerful idea. He tells his grandkids that by living with integrity, working honestly, and loving generously, they'll honor the legacy of everyone who came before them. It's a message that kind of connects his personal story to all of us, right?
James Kemp's letter it's a gift. It's a voice from a lost century, reminding us that our lives are stories that we're writing every single day. He couldn't possibly have imagined the world we live in now, but his lessons on family, work, resilience, and love, they still hit home. So the question he kind of leaves us with is this: 100 years from now, what story will you leave behind?